The afternoon sun beat down on the edge of the city where traffic slowed and people hurried. A group of bikers stood near their motorcycles outside a small roadside stop. Leather vests, dusty boots, engines still warm. Most people avoided them with quick glances and tighter grips on their bags. Red watched the street in silence. She had learned to read movement. Fear had a sound before it had words. That sound came suddenly. A little girl ran toward them from across the sidewalk. She couldn't have been more than 7. Her hair was messy, her red dress wrinkled, her eyes were wide with panic. She reached Red first and clutched her vest. "Mister won't leave me alone." Her voice shook. Red dropped to one knee instantly. "Slow down, you're safe. Tell me what happened." The girl struggled to breathe. "He keeps following me. He says he's helping, but he scares me." Diesel stepped closer. Mouse took position behind them, not threatening, just there. "What's your name?" Red asked. "Sophie." "Sophie, I'm Red. This is Diesel and Mouse. You did the right thing coming here." Sophie glanced behind her. "He's there." A man stood across the street pretending to check his phone. Dark jacket, calm posture, watching. The moment Sophie moved closer to the bikers, the man started walking toward them. "Sweetheart," he called. "There you are. You scared your mother." Sophie pressed into Red's side. "That's not my dad. That's not my mom." Red stood slowly. She placed herself between Sophie and the man. "What's going on?" Red asked. The man smiled. She wandered off. "I'm just trying to help her find her family." "No," Sophie said softly. "He told me to come with him. He said my mom was in the wrong car." Red's jaw tightened. "Where is her mother?" Red asked. "In the store," Sophie said. "She's paying." Diesel spoke calmly. "Then we can walk in together and find her." The man's smile twitched. "That won't be necessary. I'll take her." He reached out. Diesel stepped forward. Not fast, not loud. "She doesn't want to go with you." The man's voice hardened. "You bikers need to mind your own business." Mouse finally spoke. "When a child is scared, it becomes our business." People nearby slowed to watch. The man glanced around, calculating. "I didn't do anything wrong." Red looked down at Sophie. "Did he touch you?" Sophie shook her head. "He tried to hold my hand. I pulled away." Red raised her eyes again. "Then we wait here until her mother comes out. Nobody leaves." The man scoffed. "This is harassment." But he took a step back. Seconds felt heavy, long. Sophie's hands trembled. Then the store door swung open. A woman rushed out. "Sophie!" The girl ran forward. Her mother dropped to the ground and wrapped her arms around her. "I turned for 1 second," she cried. 1 second!" She looked up and saw the man. Her fear turned to fury. "Who is that?" Before anyone answered, sirens echoed in the distance. The man's face drained of color. Red didn't smile. This was only the beginning, ending line. And sometimes justice starts with a child brave enough to speak, and strangers willing to listen. The sirens grew louder as the tension hung thick in the air. Sophie's mother kept one arm wrapped tightly around her daughter, as if letting go might make her disappear again. Sophie's face was buried in her chest, small shoulders shaking. Red stayed close, calm, steady. "Ma'am," Red said gently, "your daughter ran to us and asked for help. She said this man was following her." The woman looked at the man across the sidewalk. Her eyes hardened. "Is that true?" she demanded. The man lifted both hands. "This is being blown out of proportion. The child was confused." Sophie lifted her head. "I was not confused." Her voice was small, but clear. "You told me my mom was lost." A crowd had formed. Not large, but enough. Phones were out. People were watching. Diesel shifted his stance, blocking the man's path without touching him. "Where did you meet her?" Diesel asked. "Near the parking lot," the man replied quickly. Mouse tilted his head. Funny, she says she came from the store. The man's jaw tightened. Children make things up. Sophie's mother stood. My daughter does not lie. She looked at Red. Thank you for stopping her. When I couldn't find her, I thought my heart would stop. Red nodded once. She was scared. Very scared. The sirens arrived moments later. A patrol car rolled up fast and stopped at the curb. 2 officers stepped out. 1 woman, 1 man, both alert. The woman officer spoke first. Who called this in? A store employee raised his hand. I did. I saw the girl run up here crying. Then I saw this guy trying to take her. The officer nodded and turned to Sophie. Sweetie, are you okay? Sophie clung to her mother. He kept telling me to come with him. The officer's tone shifted. Sir, I need you to stay right where you are. I didn't do anything illegal, the man snapped. I was helping. Helping usually doesn't look like this, the officer replied calmly. The male officer stepped closer to the man. May I see some identification? The man hesitated. I don't have to show it if I haven't committed a crime. Right now, the officer said, we are determining that. The man sighed and reached into his wallet. His hands trembled. As the officers checked his information, Sophie spoke again. He tried to pull me toward the street. Her mother froze. You what? I let go, Sophie said. That's when I ran. The female officer made a note. That's important. The radio on her shoulder crackled. Her expression changed. She looked at her partner. We need to take this seriously. The man's confidence crumbled. This is insane, he muttered. She's a kid. Yes, the officer replied firmly. And kids need protection. Red caught Sophie's eye and gave a small nod. You did right. The officers turned to the man. Sir, for now we are going to ask you to wait with us. The man glanced at the bikes, at the people, at the officers. There was nowhere to go. Something dark had been interrupted today, and it was not finished yet. Ending line. Sometimes it only takes one moment of courage to stop something terrible from becoming permanent. The man stood rigid as the officers guided him toward the patrol car. His earlier confidence had vanished. Sweat darkened his collar despite the mild air. Sophie stayed pressed against her mother, her fingers twisted into the fabric of her jacket. It's okay, her mother whispered. You're safe now. The female officer stepped aside and spoke quietly into her radio. Then she turned back to the man. Sir, do you have a vehicle here? Yes, he said sharply. That one. He nodded toward a gray sedan parked near the curb. The officer exchanged a look with her partner. We're going to take a look. You can't, the man snapped. You need a warrant. The officer's voice was firm. We have reasonable concern involving a child. She walked toward the car. The male officer followed. Red felt Diesel move slightly closer to Sophie, shielding her without thinking. The trunk opened. The officer froze. She reached inside and pulled something out slowly. Zip ties, several of them. Her expression hardened. She lifted a small backpack next. Children's socks, a sweater, too small to belong to a grown adult. The crowd gasped. Phones rose higher. The officer looked back at the man. Care to explain this? The man said nothing. Mouse spoke quietly. That backpack doesn't belong to Sophie. Sophie shook her head. I've never seen it. The female officer closed the trunk with a sharp motion. Sir, you are being detained. The man's voice cracked. This is a misunderstanding. Enough, the male officer said. They placed cuffs on him, smooth, controlled. Sophie's mother covered her mouth. Tears fell fast. Oh my God, she whispered. Red knelt again in front of Sophie. You were very brave. Sophie nodded slowly. I was scared. But you look safe. That landed heavy. People stared at the bikers now, not with fear, with something else. Respect. The officers led the man to the patrol car. Another unit arrived. Then another. Questions followed. Statements. Careful notes. The female officer returned to Sophie and her mother. "Ma'am, we'll need to take a full report." "I'll do anything," her mother said. "Anything." Red stood to leave space, but the officer stopped her. "You three," she said. "Thank you for not walking away." Red nodded. "We just listened." The officer looked at the bikes, the leather, the patches. Most people wouldn't have. Sophie looked up. "Can I say something?" Everyone paused. The officer smiled softly. "Of course." Sophie pointed at Red. "She didn't tell me to be quiet. She believed me." Red felt something tighten in her chest. The police finished their work. The crowd slowly dispersed. The patrol car pulled away. The danger was gone, but the feeling stayed. Somewhere nearby, something worse had almost happened, and today it did not. Ending line. Justice does not always arrive loudly, but it always begins when someone refuses to look away. The street slowly returned to movement, but nothing felt normal anymore. Sophie sat on the curb beside her mother, wrapped in her jacket, small and quiet. Red crouched nearby, close enough to be seen but not crowding. "You doing okay?" Red asked. Sophie nodded. "I don't feel scared anymore." Her mother looked at Red with tired eyes. "I judged you," she admitted softly. "When she ran to you, my first thought was fear. Now I don't know what I would have done if you weren't here." Red shook her head. She trusted herself. We just stood still. The female officer returned, holding a folder. "We ran his information," she said. "He's been questioned before. Different places. No charges, until now." Sophie's mother stiffened. "What do you mean?" "He's been reported for following children," the officer continued. "Always left before police arrived." Sophie looked up. "So he didn't get caught?" "Not until today," the officer replied. Sophie squeezed her mother's hand. "I'm glad I ran." "You did the bravest thing," the officer said. "You spoke up." Diesel folded his arms. "Running is choosing to live." The officer nodded. "We searched his car more thoroughly, found more items, enough for the investigators to step in." Sophie's mother closed her eyes. "Other kids?" "We're trying to find them," the officer said honestly. Red saw something change in Sophie. Fear became sadness, then anger. "He shouldn't scare kids," Sophie said firmly. "No," Red replied, "and because of you, he won't." A detective arrived soon after, older, calm, focused. "I'm Detective Harris," he said. "I need to thank all of you." He turned to Sophie. "Your courage helped us connect things that were scattered." Sophie frowned. "Like a puzzle?" "Exactly," he said. Sophie thought for a moment. "Will the other kids be okay?" The detective met her eyes. "We are going to do everything we can." She nodded once, satisfied. Red watched that moment carefully. A child understanding justice, not revenge. The detective turned to the bikers. "Most people would have crossed the street." Mouse replied quietly. "We've seen what happens when people don't stop." The detective nodded. "There's more to this man," he said, "and because of today, we can stop him." The sun dipped lower. Shadows stretched long across the pavement. Sophie stood up and walked toward Red. She held out a crumpled paper from her pocket. It was a drawing. 3 motorcycles, 1 little girl, all standing together. "This is you," Sophie said. "You didn't leave." Red took the paper gently. "We never do." Ending line. Sometimes protecting the innocent is not about strength, but about choosing to stay when leaving would be easier. Days passed, but the moment refused to fade. Sophie replayed it in her mind whenever the world felt loud or uncertain. Her mother noticed the change. Less fear, more questions. One evening, Sophie sat at the kitchen table coloring. "Mom," she said quietly, Why didn't those people help me before I ran? Her mother paused. Sometimes people are scared to be wrong, she said, or scared to get involved. Sophie looked up. But Red wasn't scared. No, her mother said gently. She chose kindness. Across town, Red sat in the garage with Diesel and Mouse. News played softly in the background. A headline flashed. Suspect detained in child safety investigation. More victims expected. Mouse leaned forward. That's him. Red didn't smile. Means it was worse than we knew. Diesel exhaled slowly. And that kid stopped it. The phone buzzed. Red answered. This is Red. A calm voice spoke. Detective Harris, I wanted to update you. Red listened. Her expression tightened. So it's official, she said. Yes, the detective replied. Multiple jurisdictions. Because Sophie spoke up, others are coming forward. Red closed her eyes briefly. Good, she said. That's good. After the call ended, she stared at the drawing Sophie had given her, still pinned to the wall. Heroes were not invincible. They were present. The next afternoon, Sophie and her mother arrived at the station at the detective's request. Not for questions, for closure. A small room, warm light. Detective Harris knelt to Sophie's level. I need you to know something, he said. You helped protect other kids you will never meet. Sophie thought hard. So they don't get scared like me? That's right. Sophie nodded. I'm glad I ran. Her mother squeezed her hand, pride filling the quiet. Later that day, Sophie spotted 3 motorcycles parked down the street near a cafe. Her heart jumped. Mom, she whispered, it's them. Red saw her first. Sophie didn't run this time. She walked. I wanted to say thank you, Sophie said. Red smiled. You already did. Sophie shook her head and held up a folded card. Inside were 3 words, written carefully. You stayed. Red crouched. So will you, she said. Remember that. Sophie nodded. I will. The bikes roared to life as the sun dipped low, and somewhere inside, a little girl, fear no longer held the loudest voice. Ending line. Courage does not always scream. Sometimes it simply steps forward and refuses to disappear. 6 weeks later, the city moved on, but the story did not fade. It grew quieter, stronger. Sophie stood in front of her classroom, holding a sheet of paper with shaking hands. Her teacher waited, patient. This is my story, Sophie began. Her voice was soft but steady. I got scared one day. A man tried to take me away from my mom. The room was silent. I ran to people who looked strong. I trusted my heart. They listened. She lowered the paper, and I am safe. The class clapped, not loudly, respectfully. At the back of the room, Sophie's mother wiped her eyes. Later that afternoon, Detective Harris stood at a small press conference. Cameras flashed. Reporters waited. Because of one child speaking up, he said, we were able to connect multiple cases. 11 children have now been returned to their families. The room filled with quiet gasps. Courage begins younger than we think, the detective continued, and community begins with listening. Across town, Red watched the broadcast from the clubhouse. Diesel leaned against the wall. Mouse sipped coffee. A kid changed all that, Diesel said. No, Mouse replied. People did. She reminded them how. A knock sounded at the door. Red opened it. Sophie stood there with her mother. She held a newspaper clipping folded neatly. My mom said I could bring this, Sophie said. Red crouched as Sophie opened it. The headline read, Man sentenced, children protected, community praises quick action. Sophie pointed to a small photo at the bottom. That's you. Red smiled gently. That's everyone. Sophie stepped closer and hugged her, firm, certain. You didn't leave, Sophie said. Red rested a hand on her shoulder. And neither will you. Not when something feels wrong. Sophie nodded. I listened to myself now. That evening, the motorcycles rolled onto the road. The engines were steady, purposeful. Where to? Diesel asked. Red glanced at the horizon. Anywhere we're needed. They rode beneath a sky painted gold and blue. Just 3 figures moving forward. Back home, Sophie taped her drawing above her bed. Beneath it, she wrote new words. I was brave. The world did not change overnight. But something shifted. A child spoke. Strangers stayed. And justice listened. Ending line. Sometimes the smallest voice can stop the greatest harm, if someone is willing to hear it.